Hello, Benjamin. You are a trader and an analyst of the grain market in London. We need to contact to you to know about what are you seeing about the markets. The rise in the price of agricultural commodities has been very important since August. In your analysis, has the ceiling been reached, or what can make the trend change?
Well, yeah, thank you very much for having me today. So, yeah, I mean, we have seen, yes, significant increase in prices, but I would say increase in volatility across the board if we are talking about wheat, corn, soybeans. So essentially, we started really with heavy fundamentals back in May, June, July. The market was really talking about, record crops, record yields in the US. I'm talking about corn and soybeans. And finally, Mother Nature didn't really cooperate. So we have started to see this derecho really spreading across Iowa. So that was really the first negative element pushing, or at least seen as supportive to the prices. And then in Europe, we saw very, very challenging conditions. Not necessarily this summer, it's been hot, but it was really at plantings. So I'm talking about wheat. So that's really what we have seen really underlying and lending support to the prices. And then also what we've seen, we have seen in Ukraine really significant reduction in production. The market was talking about 35, the USDA was talking about 36 plus. And all of the sudden, and it was really back from feedback that I've got from producers. Well, the USDA, I think they're quite optimistic at the moment regarding the Ukrainian crop. And as you know, but Ukraine has become a key exporter of corn in recent years. And all those elements have really sent strong support to the markets, to the grain markets. And on top of that, of course, we have seen this COVID situation, not necessarily as negative as we could have seen, because essentially we have seen a lot of private investors spending a lot of time at home. So they have seen maybe some kind of opportunities in investing in agricultural commodities. And it's something that we've also seen with the funds. They were very, very bearish, if you remember, at the beginning of the year, up until this first crisis in March. And everybody, my dad included, was very depressed about the prices. And then that's when we started to see the funds really piling into agricultural markets. And in recent weeks, well, maybe we are getting closer to Christmas, and we just around the corner. So maybe we're going to bank in some profits just in case. So short term, we may have seen a peak in prices. Yesterday, wheat prices have collapsed, and surprising, but we have seen Gask buying wheat again. So they had really took this opportunity over the last 2 weeks deep in the market. Okay, we don't know what's going to happen next. We're going to buy some wheat. And once again, not big surprise, but they've booked Black Sea wheat again today. They've booked Russian, Ukrainian wheat. And yes, on a forward basis, the US, the French origins are competitive, but when you had the freight on top, we are still not necessarily competitive. So I'm French, so I've quite keen interest in looking at what's happening in France or Western Europe, and we are competitive, but we don't really need this export program to be that strong, because as I said before, but we have seen very terrible conditions at plantings. At the moment, it's very dry in South America. Well, we had the opposite. So essentially farmers in September, October, they couldn't drill and then November, December, it was just wet. And then, yeah, we are talking about 2020 being a very, very bad year, but because of this COVID situation. But it has really started back in 2019 for European farmers, and now, yeah, we are getting close to the end of 2020. So, as I said, prices are slightly retreating, but still, I think that the downside could be limited. Simply because, as I said, regarding corn, well, South American producers, they don't really want to sell more. Well, they're pretty much sold out now, old crop. Big risks when it comes to the 2021 production, as you well know, and it has been well documented. Too dry, too hot. Yes, maybe we're going to take a breather this week or over the next 10 days with some beneficial rains, but overall, still pretty risky outlook. So the downside at the moment, I think, in my opinion, is still limited. Maybe the only bearish or negative element could be that everyone is bullish. so maybe too much optimism could be a bad thing.
Yes, I ask you if you are seeing any bearish factor that are not now in the market that it could be, and they go down the prices, and now we see in the agricultural market.
Well, yeah, I think from a production perspective, at the moment, it's all about what's happening in South America. So if we were to see a big shift in the weather, so that definitely could take off some risk premium that we have seen over the last 4 or 5 weeks. But I don't see that coming. As you know, we are expecting La Nina to peak in the next 3-4 weeks. So I think what we see at the moment is more some kind of, okay, we pause for a minute. We have some rains still below normal in most the key growing regions in South America. And then maybe we are off to another really dry spell. So if we see a big shift in the weather, definitely we could see some pressure. If we were to see as well, I think, a new lockdown or a third wave of COVID-19, because we've just celebrated first anniversary recently, but we are still in the middle of this second wave. So the third wave could be perceived as being negative, but from a production and from a fundamental perspective, there is definitely no room for a major accident of production in Brazil and Argentina this year.
Well, producers are hoping that the prices go up at the better level that we are now, but also worried about the weather here in Argentina. We see after recent rains is better for the seeding, but it's not a very long time to see that we have the impact of La Nina this year.
Absolutely, and my parents are farmers, so I know a little bit about how farmers think about prices. They are always optimistic about prices, even more so when we have really adverse weather conditions. They are very emotional with the crops, and I think it's very normal. It's in their nature to really feed the world. So it's a very important job. But we can't really forget that we live in a global market nowadays, and the impact of the bad guys. So some of the market operators are talking about the funds as being the bad guys. They're just doing a different job. But definitely, if they were to pull the trigger, particularly when we are looking at their net position on corn, on soybeans, then yes, obviously it could amplify this sort of short-term negative pressure on prices. But once again, what we see yeah, demand is still quite robust. When we are looking at corn and soybeans, we've only got the US up until end of January, early February, being able to supply and to fulfill the demand. So I think I would see it with the Argentinian farmers on that one, and still, being optimistic when it comes to prices for both, corn and soybeans at the minute. And on top of that, you're probably well positioned to answer, or you probably know better than I do. But the peso is not doing too good. It is not necessarily doing good at the moment. It's not that great when you're looking at the Brazilian real as well. But it means that long term, it gives, once again, South American farmers a lot of optimism to expand further their acreage. So at the moment, it's pretty bad from a production perspective. But from a price perspective, it's Christmas pretty soon, so it could be a nice Christmas for Argentinian farmers, Argentinian producers at the moment.
Well, thank you, Benjamin. Leaving the agricultural market, knowing that you are London and seeing the new COVID outbreak in Europe, what impact it having on the economy? And is it similar to happen the same last March, or is different the situation there?
I think it is slightly different. I mean, we have started to live with the COVID. If you like it or not, if you believe it or not, in the COVID, you've got to accept it. And of course, when you're looking at all the economic figures in Europe, they're not that great. But I mean, it's not just about the COVID. I mean, we are in Europe. And there's also some kind of a gray cloud. Maybe you've heard of it in Argentina, but we are talking about the Brexit. And at the moment, we've got a lot of different ingredients leading to not necessarily a very tasty recipe with quite difficult period, definitely. But the central banks, they are prepared to inject as much money as they need to inject. So at the moment in France, we see the food industry in particular, they are in very bad shape. As you know, you've got a lot of different chateaux in France. You've got the Eiffel Tower. So tourism is a very important component of the French economy. And obviously with the COVID, we've got some kind of a hole in the budget, but I think we are looking ahead, and we start seeing some improving signals. Of course, what we need is a vaccine. So apparently, we were meant to have something coming from the US back in spring. Then it was in the summer, and now, well, we're going to wait. But we need to see a vaccine to really see and get over this crisis. But really, the big difference, we have started to accept it, and that's the main thing. But just to come back, really to an agricultural perspective, I mean, we have still seen, the French exports still, of course, down, or the European exports down, not necessarily because of the COVID, but simply because we can't afford a strong export program because of the production issues, but also because we benefit from, I would say, tensions between China and Australia, between China and Canada, between China and pretty much the rest of the world. But we have seen China importing a lot of French wheat, French barley. So I think the main difference between wave one, or the first crisis, and the second one is that people have started to accept living with it.
Okay, well, thank you, Benjamin, for your observation and for have with us this interview. We will contact with you in another opportunity.
Perfect. And I wish you a good harvest to my Argentinian farmers. Finger crossed.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much.